How could a narrow strip of sea hold an entire planet captive? We are not talking about oceans, not continents, not even a major sea. We are talking about a body of water 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, sandwiched between jagged mountains and an unforgiving desert. A funnel, a bottleneck, a geographical curse has written the historical story of an entire nation. Yet, through that sliver of blue, a critical portion of the world's life-sustaining energy passes every single day. This is the Strait of Hormuz, and today, it is the hottest and most dangerous choke point on the planet. It is the lifeblood of the global energy system and the Islamic Republic of Iran's most powerful secret weapon. But the story you are about to hear does not begin with oil wells, American aircraft carriers, or nuclear negotiations. It began thousands of years earlier, when this region was barely a footnote on European maps, yet was already a thriving corridor for Persian caravans and ships heavy with spices, gold, and silk, the commodities that stitched India to the Mediterranean world. Ancient empires grasped the truth quickly. Whoever controlled the strait did not merely control the water. They controlled trade. They controlled wealth. They controlled the power of life and death over others. Join us in exploring the complete history of the Strait of Hormuz. In the ancient world, the Persian Gulf, known locally as the Lower Sea, served as a vital artery connecting four distinct civilizations: Mesopotamia, the Arabian Peninsula, the Iranian Plateau, and the distant Indus Valley. As far back as the 3rd millennium BC, merchants from the Sumerian cities of Ur and Lagash sailed these waters in search of copper and diorite from Oman, timber from the Malabar coast, and luxury goods from lands no one in the Mediterranean could yet name. Any vessel traveling between Mesopotamia and the Indian Ocean had to pass through one narrow gateway. The choke point was not yet named, but it already controlled the world. As power in the Near East passed from empire to empire, from the Sumerians to the Akkadians, from the Babylonians to the Assyrians, so too did dominion over the Persian Gulf and its critical mouth. Then, around 500 BC, a singular figure unified the entire known world from one end to the other. Darius I of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, known to history as Darius the Great, consolidated a territory stretching from the shores of the Aegean Sea in the west all the way to the Indus River Valley in the east. Under Persian rule, the Gulf ceased to be a trade route and became the empire's lifeline, connecting the far eastern provinces to the heartland of southwestern Iran and Mesopotamia. The Persians built roads and a postal system. They constructed seaports and installed customs officials. Spices, fine textiles, ivory, and precious stones moved by camel to the coast, where they were loaded onto ships at the strait's mouth. It was likely during the late Parthian period or the early Sasanian Empire around the 3rd century AD that the strait acquired a name resembling its modern form, Hormuz. Scholars trace the etymology to Ormuzd, the Middle Persian rendering of Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity of Zoroastrianism, the ancient Iranian religion. Another theory derives it from two Persian words, w and mos, yielding a compound that means the place of dates, a reference to the dense date palm groves along its shores. Regardless of origin, the Sasanian rulers understood its value. They extended their military presence across both the northern and southern coasts, effectively locking the Persian Gulf behind a gate that only they could open or close. Even distant powers could not ignore it. In the year 116 AD, the Roman Emperor Trajan reached the head of the Persian Gulf during his eastern campaigns, the furthest east any Roman emperor would ever march. The classical historian Cassius Dio recorded the moment. Standing at the water's edge, gazing at ships sailing toward India, Trajan reportedly declared that if he were younger, he would have sailed with them. Every one of those ships, bound east toward the subcontinent, passed through what we now call the Strait of Hormuz. Would you like me to process another historical script using these exact audio architecture rules, or adjust the emotional pacing on any of these blocks? Following the rise of Islam in the 7th century AD, the Persian Gulf was rapidly absorbed into the expanding Islamic world. Muslim merchants became the dominant force of Indian Ocean trade across the Middle Ages. The Gulf served as the primary hub connecting the Abbasid Caliphate and later Islamic dynasties to markets stretching from the coast of East Africa to the ports of India and the islands of Southeast Asia. The principle had not changed since the Bronze Age. Control the narrowest point, and you do not need to control the world. You only need to control the bottleneck. By the twilight of the Middle Ages, a remarkable and multicultural maritime kingdom had risen to prominence at that very bottleneck. Originally located on the southern Iranian mainland, the Kingdom of Hormuz was forced to relocate its capital to the island of Hormuz itself, a small, barren, salt-encrusted landmass at the strait's mouth. Around the 13th century, driven out by regional instability and the catastrophic upheaval of the Mongol invasions that swept across Central Asia and Persia. This relocation proved to be a stroke of geopolitical genius. From its new island base, Hormuz developed into one of the most consequential trading centers in the entire belt of West and South Asia. The kingdom controlled virtually no agricultural land. It produced almost nothing. Its entire wealth derived from a single, irreplaceable asset: its geographical position. Situated at the intersection of maritime routes connecting the Persian Gulf, the Indian subcontinent, and the East African coast, Hormuz became a cosmopolitan entrepot, a city of merchants from every corner of the Eurasian continent, carrying spices, textiles, pearls, precious metals, and fine ceramics. The Venetian traveler Marco Polo passed through the island around 1271 and described what he found there: a prosperous trading center overflowing with goods from all the known world, with ships arriving laden with elephant ivory, gold thread, silk, and precious stones. It was, by any medieval standard, the commercial crossroads of the planet. At the dawn of the 16th century, a new power arrived from the west, and it arrived with cannon fire. The Portuguese, sailing under the command of commanders like Afonso de Albuquerque, had developed a ruthless but supremely effective strategy. Do not conquer the hinterland, control the ports. Specifically, control the choke points. The island of Hormuz was the ultimate choke point, worth more in strategic value than an entire continent of spice-producing territory. By seizing the island, building formidable fortifications, and positioning their cannon batteries toward the sea lanes, the Portuguese transformed Hormuz into a global toll booth, compelling every merchant ship entering or leaving the Persian Gulf to pay taxes and submit to inspection. Portugal held Hormuz for over a century, though contemporary accounts painted a rather grim portrait of island life under their occupation. Saint Francis Xavier, the pioneering Jesuit missionary en route to Japan in the mid-16th century, visited the island and described it in terms that would make a diplomat wince. He compared it to the biblical cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, reporting a culture of licentiousness, corruption, and moral decay that afflicted Christians and locals alike. The wealth flowed freely, but so did the vice. Portuguese dominance finally ended in 1622, when the Safavid Persian Empire formed a remarkable tactical partnership with the British East India Company. Together, a combined Persian-British force stormed the island's defenses and expelled the Portuguese in what was one of the earliest examples of a land power and a maritime commercial enterprise joining forces against a common rival. Control of the strait now shifted to a new arrangement: Persian authority over the northern land coast and an expanding British maritime presence throughout the broader Gulf. Flags changed, but the function of the strait did not. It continued to concentrate the flow of the world's wealth into a single channel. By the 19th century, the British Empire had emerged as the dominant naval power in the Persian Gulf, driven by a strategic imperative that would define the next 2 centuries of regional history, protecting the sea lanes to India, the jewel at the heart of the British imperial project. The Gulf states entered into treaties that placed them under British protection and under British strategic control. When British naval strategists looked at a map of the Gulf, every calculation began and ended at the strait. It was the lock on the door, and Britain held the key. By the close of the 19th century, the value of the land surrounding the strait began to exceed the value of the commerce passing through it. The Industrial Revolution had created an insatiable demand for a new kind of fuel. In 1908, geologists drilling in southwestern Iran struck oil, the first major discovery in the Middle East. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company was born almost immediately, and the map of the region was redrawn, not by caravan routes or tribal boundaries, but by exploration contracts negotiated in London boardrooms. The strategic implications became undeniable in 1914, when Winston Churchill, then serving as First Lord of the Admiralty, made one of the most contrarian decisions in modern military history. He ordered the conversion of the Royal Navy from coal to oil. Britain had no domestic oil reserves, none. The Royal Navy, the instrument that defended the British Empire and enforced global commerce, would be entirely dependent on fuel transported through the Strait of Hormuz. In a single administrative decision, Churchill had made the entire British war-fighting capacity hostage to a 20-mile-wide corridor of water on the other side of the world. After World War II, as the United States emerged as the dominant global superpower and the global economy reorganized itself around petroleum, the importance of the strait escalated to a level the ancient Persians could never have imagined. The countries surrounding the Gulf sat atop more than half the world's proven oil reserves. The strait was no longer simply a trade route. It was the central nervous system of modern industrial civilization. The 20th century transformed the geopolitical weight of the strait in ways that even the most far-sighted Victorian strategist could not have anticipated. The discovery of massive oil reserves in Iran in 1908, followed by enormous finds in Saudi Arabia in 1938, Kuwait in 1938, Iraq throughout the 1920s and 1930s, and the United Arab Emirates in the 1950s and 1960s turned the Persian Gulf basin into the nerve center of the global oil economy. And every barrel of that oil, every cubic foot of liquefied natural gas had one exit route, the Strait of Hormuz. Today, approximately 1/5 of the world's daily oil supply transits this passage. Roughly 20% of global liquefied natural gas moves through it. In a single year, over 21 million barrels of oil per day flow through the strait. In 2018, approximately 76% of the crude oil transported through Hormuz traveled east toward Asia, with the majority reaching just 5 countries: China, India, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. These nations are not merely interested observers in the strait's stability. They are existentially dependent on it. The stakes extend beyond energy. The Persian Gulf region accounts for nearly 30% of the world's traded urea and nitrogen-based fertilizers, the chemical foundation of modern industrial agriculture. When fertilizer prices spike because shipping routes are threatened, food prices follow within months in supermarkets from Seoul to Sao Paulo. The strait is not simply an energy choke point. It is a food security choke point, a global economic choke point, a choke point of choke points. The only meaningful alternatives are limited and insufficient. Saudi Arabia operates an east-west pipeline capable of carrying up to 5 million barrels per day to Red Sea ports, though in 2018 it transported just 2 million barrels daily. The United Arab Emirates has the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, which can carry up to 1.5 million barrels per day to the Gulf of Oman, bypassing the strait, but in practice, it consistently operates well below capacity. Even combined, these bypass routes could absorb only a fraction of the 21 million barrels that pass through the strait each day. There is no realistic redundancy for the Strait of Hormuz. After 5,000 years of history, the Strait of Hormuz remains what it has always been, an approximately 20-mile wide lever capable of moving the entire world. The question that no strategist, no diplomat, and no energy economist has yet answered satisfactorily is this: how much longer can the architecture of modern civilization rest on such a fragile, contested, and irreplaceable passage? The ancient Persians, who first named it after their supreme deity, may have understood something we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. Some corridors of power are not just geographical. They are, in every meaningful sense, divine. If this history changed the way you see the world, subscribe to our channel. Share this video with someone who needs to understand what is really happening in the Middle East. And tell us in the comments, what hidden power story do you want us to uncover next? We read every comment, and we will see you in the next episode.